from the crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 35 of Dads from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason, and tonight I'm joined by Jody.
Hello.
And Mondo.
Hello. You switched us up again. You threw me off again.
Yeah. I know.
I like it.
Gotta keep on your toes. And we have a special guest, author James Dermond. Welcome to the Crypt.
Okay, glad to be here. Thanks.
So you have a collection of stories coming out?
Yeah, it's volume 4 in the series, Doorways to the Unseen. Each volume has 6 horror stories, 6 short horror stories. And the 4th volume will be out at the end of next month, April 2022.
Great. And these are short horror stories, so kind of EC comic style a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like the anthology series, that you'd see on television, where there's a lot of variety in the type of stories and, the settings and things like that. So the first story in volume 4 is Fear of the Dark, which is about the boogeyman.
It's also a great Iron Maiden song.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's also, as I found out, I was researching it to see if anybody had written a story like that before. And that's when I found out about Iron Maidens. I'm not a big fan of theirs, but I found out about the song when I was researching the concept behind the story.
That's cool. And how long have you been a horror writer?
My first book was in 2016, and then there was a several-year gap. I was trying to get the second book written in between doing a lot of other things, and I sold a business that I was developing, and I moved from Denver to Colorado Springs, and then I wrote volume 2, and then I wrote volume 3, and now volume 4 will be out next month. So I originally planned this as an ongoing series, but I just had a combination of being extremely busy and like something like writer's block, where I just couldn't get the next volume going. But volume 2 turned out pretty well, I thought.
In the volume 5, is that on the horizon?
Volume 5 will be available October 2022. So that was my original plan, like an April, October release schedule. And there'll be 12 volumes in the series, and 2 released each year, from this year onward. And then after that, in between that, I plan to write novels, but I'm not sure when the first novel, whenever I can find time in between those 2 volumes, the novels will get done. It's just taking me longer to write at the level that I want to write at. So
is writing something you always wanted to do, or when did you start really getting into horror writing?
It would be right before the first volume came out in 2016. So I started writing it. It came out like right at around Halloween 2016.
Nice.
So I started writing it earlier that year. And actually volume 1 was really easy to write because it was like, it just kind of came out of me, and it was unedited, and, it was unconscious in a lot of ways. I just kind of wrote it all down. I wasn't really thinking about, how it would appear to everyone else. It's just stories that were in my head. And then volume 2 took longer to write because I was kind of self-editing. I was saying, no, this isn't good enough, and then rewrite the whole thing. I didn't do that for volume 1, but it still turned out really well.
Isn't that what they say whenever you make like a music or you make like a album or a movie? Like the first one takes up your whole life, and then the second one you only have like 6 months or 18 months to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, it's just things that I've been thinking about, but I didn't actually try to write anything until 2016. Mm-hmm. And I probably wrote it over less than 2 months.
Oh, wow.
The 6 stories. And I'd never written anything before, like a short story or, fiction writing.
So you didn't take any classes or anything?
No, I don't have a degree in English or creative writing or anything like that.
So you're saying I've taken more creative writing classes and haven't written anything, and you just are natural.
Well, no, I mean, I read an incredible amount of books when I was younger,
right.
So I was mostly an avid reader, like a voracious reader. And, and then I watched hundreds of horror movies over the years. So I had a lot of ideas like pent up in my head that just kind of came out in 6 stories.
Nice.
Do you have any favorite horror authors that you go to?
I like Stephen King, but he's the major one in the genre. Clive Barker, H.P. Lovecraft. I like the 19th century ghost stories like M.R. James and Arthur Machen. He's kind of a folk horror writer. Those would be some of the influences on this series.
Okay. Well, again, when are those books coming out?
So volume 4 is coming out in the end of April 2022.
And where can people find those?
It'll be on Amazon first, and then it'll be released on other platforms later. So
excellent. All right, we'll keep an eye out for those, and we'll definitely post some links in this episode. But tonight we will be discussing Tales from the Crypt episode Undertaking Parlor, which premiered on July 24th, 1991. Jody, give us a plot synopsis.
All right. We open on the Crypt Keeper dressed up as a director. Again, keeping the costumes going. Reminded me of Demon Knight, seeing the Crypt Keeper in the director's chair again.
I like the ponytail.
Yeah. No, again, always good with the costumes, but it also reminded me of Demon Knight, also gets extra points. All right. So the very first line of this episode, we're introduced to 3 boys. But the very first words you hear are damn shit, son of a bitch, fuck. And that's how we start this episode. These 3 boys are Norm, Jess, and Aron. They're coming out of the theater, talking about the movie together. And then we see something with like predator vision. It's those colors, that the predator's using when he's using heat vision, following after them. And they turn and they see this hooded figure with a glowing dot in its face. And they run around, but they realize that it is actually one of their friends with a camera, the kid who played Short Round and Temple of Doom with a camera. This kid's name is Josh, and he says he's making a horror film. But then Jess says, do you have the balls to make a real horror film and shake hands with a dead man? So they break into a mortuary. They pull aside a sheet and they see a dead woman who they recognize. It's a librarian. But then they hear a sound and they go hide. The Undertaker has returned. And he turns on some music and notices that the woman is uncovered. But then he starts talking to her and talking about how she had rejected him so many times and hits her in the face with a mallet. Starts like moving all these parts of her face around and making her smile and squishing her nose. And it's really like Play-Doh face weird. And then he uncovers the rest of her body and slices into her to drain out all the fluids with a vacuum tube. Eating pizza and drinking Pepsi the whole time he's doing all this, by the way. One of the boys accidentally makes a noise and the Undertaker goes to investigate. So another boy distracts him. And before he can get found out, the buzzer rings and the Undertaker goes to open the door. While he goes to open the door, everybody runs out except for Norm, who was not fast enough to get out. And so while Norm is still hiding in there, a man comes in. Norm can't see who he is. He can only see his shoes. And this man demands his cut before the funeral. The Undertaker gives him $500. This person, we find out, is a pharmacist who is poisoning prescriptions that are killing the patients so that the families will pay for an expensive funeral. And then they each take a cut from that funeral money, which is a really convoluted scheme to make money as a pharmacist. I mean, you could just sell drugs. It seems like if you're already going to be doing illegal stuff, you could just sell stuff. But anyway, they have this whole scheme. And then he reveals, though, that they're going to make a lot of money because he just sent some asthma medicine to a really rich guy. And they walk away and Norm escapes. So the next day, the 3 boys go to visit Josh and they find him crying. He said his dad died the night before from an asthma attack. And so the boys tell him what Norm had heard in the mortuary the night before. The boys take Josh's camera and they're going to go get evidence of the plot so that people can find out what these 2 guys have been doing. Norm can only see the man's shoes, so they go to the pharmacy first to figure out which pharmacist it was. And Aron goes in and he steals a magazine to like draw them out from behind the counter, but it's not neither of the pharmacists in there. But then Mr. Grundy, the owner who owns the pharmacy, comes by and he is wearing those shoes. And so they found out it's the owner of the pharmacy and the Undertaker who are doing this stuff together. So Norm makes a delivery to the funeral home for Grundy, and then he purposely drops it on the ground. And Undertaker chases after him, and while he's out of the way, the boys run in and realize that the Undertaker's actually been screwing Grundy. He's been saying, I only made $500 this time, so here's your cut. But he's actually been making a lot more money, and Grundy hasn't been getting his half of everything. And so then while they're going to, they hide, they point the camera there, and the Undertaker comes back in with a new body. At right about that time, the battery on the camera dies, and when it comes back, the body's opened up, and Undertaker's filling up this body with a bucket of guts and sawdust. This is a really gruesome episode. Like, there's a lot of guts involved in this one. While he's watching through the camera, the door buzzes and Grundy comes in and he confronts him over the money. The boys had left that invoice where Grundy could find it. And the Undertaker says, "Oh, well, you can't say anything about this because I'll reveal that you killed your wife." So Grundy pulls a gun on him. Undertaker hits Grundy in the head, knocking him out, straps him to the table, and he pours some acid into his mouth and kills him. At this point, the boys all step out to reveal they all have cameras, and they've recorded everything from all angles around the room. It's all caught on tape. The Undertaker threatens them with a knife, but the boys turn on that vacuum tube from earlier, and they ended up sticking him in the stomach, draining out all of his blood and bodily fluids as he lies there on the floor. And then, just for a weird little cap on it all, they look over at the librarian's corpse from earlier, and she's smiling. That's weird. But the rest of it was fun. Kind of a weird ending, but yeah.
All right, Mondo, what did you think of this episode?
Okay. I really liked this episode. It had a super Stand By Me or a Goonies vibe to it at the beginning. I love the kids. Yeah, Losers Club or Monster Squad is also what I kind of got from it. And I love the fact that I like to think that Norm grew up to be Norm from Cheers. I know it's around the same time period, but we're just assuming it's done in the past because you don't hear the name Norm anymore. It's such a good name. Like whoever has a kid next out of all of us needs to name it Norm.
Nope.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the same boat.
Everyone is shaking our heads.
Whoever gets a cat next or a dog next, it has to be named Norm. I did think I loved the OSHA definitely would not be cool with that like power vac like gut sucking machine. I'm pretty sure that's not how I've seen the show 6 Feet Under. I'm pretty sure it's not how funeral homes work or morticians work. And plus it also looked like the robot from Lost in Space. So I did kind of love that. Yeah, well, the ending was a little bit weird. I do like the fact the Undertaker's threatening him with a knife and forgets like, oh shit, I have a gun. I could just shoot these kids. And he should have shot him. Like, I don't know what he hesitated for. he easily could have killed all 4 of those kids in that room.
He's already involved in multiple murders. I mean, like,
yeah, like what are 4
doesn't
more?
Have scruples.
What are 4 more? But yeah, I thought it was a really, really fun episode. I really liked the kids play so well together and off each other, and was kind of endearing. I wouldn't say endearing, but you think about it in modern times, right? Like if one of our parents passed away, we probably all know about it within the day or whatever, very, very quickly. Like his dad passed away and no one knew about it because you didn't have a cell phone to text your friends back then. So that was kind of a throwback to how we grew up, which is kind of cool. But yeah, it's I think we're just continuing on this Tales from the Crypt streak of just great episodes, and this one lives up to the I mean, I don't know, we'll talk about ratings a bit. I don't know if I'd go 5 on it, but man, it's up there, and it was really enjoyable episode.
James, what'd you think?
Yeah, it was a pretty lighthearted episode, despite the subject matter of, murder and,
right.
The bodies, being desecration of bodies and things like that. But yeah, it does have like a Goonies kind of 80 feel to it. So, it's interesting to people from that era, for that grew up watching that kind of content. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of was when they went down to the mortuary was Stand By Me. Like, you want to see a dead body?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they were they were all too cool to see a dead body. Oh, can we talk about the effects? I thought in the corpses was really good.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't over the top, but it was just grotesque. And the chunks of meat flying. I love that effect, how they had the chunks of meat. You could see, like, you would think, right? If you actually had a machine like that, why would it be see-through? Like, why would that be viewable? Like, you don't want to.
That's the psychopath edition.
Yeah, like I don't want to see through shop vac to see them cleaning up my garage, right? Like, why would you want that? So
Jody, what'd you think?
Yeah, no, like everyone else has said, like it's just got that vibe of like the classic 80s kids movie, kids getting into trouble, kids stumbling onto something that they shouldn't have seen, and then going to save the day. One thing I've always liked about like movies like The Goonies and this too, these kids are foul mouthed, they're all swearing, they're messing with each other all the time, like actual kids. Like
Yes.
I feel like that's really accurate. They're all, this is not a family series. This is just as gory and just as swear filled as any other episode, even though it really is, it's almost like it's geared at teenagers, but it has all the stuff that teenagers shouldn't see but want to see. But yeah, no, I loved it. Like I really had a great time with it. I love all those movies that we've already mentioned, and so it's just definitely a throwback to that time.
I kind of feel like in modern times that like just kind of even though right there's grotesque stuff and cursing by these kids, there's not a whole lot of great coming of age films anymore. And
Not like that.
Not like that. And unless obviously coming of age films today aren't meant for people our age.
I think we're a little past that now.
Yeah, but what I mean though is like even like my kid, I don't know about your kids, I don't think they have any great coming of age films that they really latch on to or associate with like that we had when we were growing up. Even if you go as far as saying like The Craft was a coming of age film for a lot of people. I don't know. I think a lot of that early 90s, late 80s just kind of, it's still gruesome. It's still kind of foul mouth, but it still has heart to it. It's not just foul mouth for the sake of being foul mouth.
Yeah.
It's still very endearing.
The only ones I can think of modern, maybe the new It might have some of that in there.
That's what I was going to say.
Stranger Things.
Oh, that's
Stranger
a really
Things
good one.
actually is, it is a nostalgia show, but it probably resonates with young people, I would think.
Yeah, no, my kids love it.
I didn't think of
every
that
episode.
Yeah, my daughter loves it too. I didn't even think of that's a really good call out.
Yellow Jackets?
I haven't watched it yet, so I can't.
I can't comment yet either.
Yeah, okay. I just finished it. It's really
I definitely want to.
I watched that one movie that came out a few years ago about like the middle schoolers. It's kind of like super bad with middle school kids.
Oh, Good Boys.
Yeah. But I felt like even that was a little bit too over the top. It didn't have the charm of those 81s. It was just like, all right, we're gonna do some really just weird shit because it's weird that middle schoolers are doing it.
Yeah, that was more raunchy for raunchy's sake. It's not, just this is how kids talk.
Yeah, it's a tough needle to thread, and I actually think that's what's so great about this episode is that it's cast so well, and I think everyone can see themselves as one of those kids because you got Jess as the cool kid with the leather jacket. Aron is just kind of a shithead that gets in trouble. Norm is kind of the chubby white kid. I definitely affiliated with that role. And then you always have you always have the kind of the ethnic kid. This very much reminded me of very specifically of my group of friends in middle school. We all kind of filled those different roles.
I think I was probably Norm as well. So
yeah.
Gee, we all grew up to be three dorks that talk about horror. Like,
I know.
Imagine that.
So I think that it's cast really well. And I think it's directed really well because we didn't say it, but there's a lot of shots that are like first person camera shots.
Which it's got a real found footage.
Seen a couple times, but it goes found footage for a little bit, which I was like, I love found footage movies. So
yeah, me too.
I was really digging on that. So this is directed by Michael Thau. He's mostly known for his editing. He edited Small Soldiers. He edited Superman 2, their Donner cut. So again, I think we have a good, really strong editing because the episode moves very quickly, and I like it when 30-minute episodes feel like 10-minute episodes because the pacing's so good rather than a 30-minute episode that feels like an hour.
Right.
That always helps. John Glover plays the Undertaker, who does he's great. He's chewing the scenery. It's the kind of Tales from the Crypt over the top that we like. He was in Scrooge, Gremlins 2, and The Mouth of Madness. He was in Smallville, Fear of the Walking Dead, and he's also done a ton of voices in DC animated. He was also in Batman and Robin. Grundy was played by Graham Jarvis, who was in Mr. Mom, Misery, Seventh Heaven. So those are the adult characters. The kids are very interesting.
Grundy was the pharmacist, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, if you're gonna be a creepy dude that kills people, don't dress like a creepy dude that kills people. Like you should try to hide that just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. So I said Aaron, the kind of shithead kid, he was in Puppet Master 3 and he was in Deep Space Nine as Nog, the kind of teenage Ferengi kid. So that was kind of cool that he had a nice career doing that.
That's the best Puppet Master, by the way.
Let's see, Norm was played by Scott Fults, he was in one episode of Saved by the Bell, but I remember very distinctly it was like the very first Saved by the Bell episode I ever saw, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And kind of made me into a big fan. He was in Quantum Leap. He was also in a series called She-Wolf of London, which I kind of want to check out. Now, Jason Marsden plays Jess, the cool kid. He has a very, very long career. He's still acting in pretty much consistently since then.
And he's the one I immediately recognized as soon as the kids popped up on screen, because he's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah, so he was back in the day, he was in Erie, Indiana. He was in the Munsters reboot, The Munsters Today. He had roles in Full House, Boy Meets World, Step by Step. But his voice career, he was the kid in the Goofy movie, Goofy's son. He was in Spirited Away, the Extreme Ghostbusters, recently the Transformers Rescue Bots show. Ton of voice acting. So he's a really cool career. Then Josh is played by Ke Quan, I believe it's pronounced. And again, he was in Temple of Doom and the Goonies. And he actually has a new movie coming out, looks really cool, called Everything Everywhere All at Once. So he's gone back into acting. So I'm really excited to see that movie. But overall, yeah, it's a really fun episode. Good acting all around, moves really quickly. And again, I don't know why it's a cliche, but anytime you see coroner, they have to be eating. I don't know what says.
It's just something that disturbs everyone else. How could you eat in front of a corpse and all the
right? Because we have a big
organs and things like that. But they
taboo.
can. I've seen the real television footage of them doing it.
Well, yeah, because you got to eat sometime, but just every single time, especially in Tales from the Crypt, every single coroner.
Well, I can say I can't say much about a coroner, but my wife went to vet school. And one day I went to visit her and she walked me through some of the rooms, and there was a pathology room where there was literally half of a horse hanging up like by chains. It was like a cat in a cooler and all this stuff. There were kids sitting there eating with this like I'm gagging because it just smells like death in the whole room, and the kids just in there eating while this horse hangs from the ceiling. So I guess you get used to it.
Is this when she went to vet school in France?
Yeah, it's all raw. I was like, no,
did you guys see the autopsy of Jane Doe?
I love that so much.
Yeah, they go into a lot of detail about what it's like to be a coroner.
Yeah,
and how everything is perceived from their, from their side, where they're working on these courses and they have to eat lunch and eat dinner, and things like that.
Not as gruesome, but I had a friend I've several friends that are vegan, but we used to have a place here called like Burgers, Beer, and something, and they'd actually butcher the animals, like not butcher them, but they'd already be dead, but they'd cut them up behind this glass window. You could watch them and they'd grind the meat. They had a fantastic vegan menu though. So I'd gone there and had the food is good. And I told her, I said, oh, you should check this place out. They have a fantastic vegan menu. Not realizing that she basically made it in there and saw that and left. And she was pretty pissed off at me.
Yeah, that's your warning or something.
I just didn't think about it. I saw the vegan menu and thought I was doing a friendly thing and saying, hey, this place has an awesome vegan menu. Not thinking, oh, but you have to walk through the abattoir to get there.
Why would they do that? I mean, why would they show the animals being slaughtered?
Well, they didn't slaughter them. Sorry, just once they're already dead, just cutting them up and butchering the
process.
So they had the sides of they had the sides of meat, not the
that's better size of meat. But still, for someone who's vegan that doesn't want to see that, it was.
Yeah, I don't blame
no company we work with is a chicken processing plant, and I have had to walk that floor and seen every step of the process. It's pretty fucking gruesome. Look, I couldn't eat a sandwich while I was walking through that.
Do you hand out sandwiches? Here's a killing floor. Have a Chick-fil-A
sandwich.
Here's earplugs because it's loud. Here is your coveralls so you don't get messy, and here's a chicken salad sandwich to take along with you.
Chicken salad. Here's our extra processed chicken sandwich. Oh man. But yeah, this is a really fun episode, and it's definitely I don't remember much of it, but definitely the shot of them showing up with all the cameras. I'm like, okay, I remember this now. That was the thing that that came back to me.
Did anyone think at the beginning when the Crypt Keeper is like lights, camera, action that you're watching the wrong episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, am I watching the right fucking episode? The damn Crypt Keeper.
Actually, I was thinking the beginning might be a movie within the movie or something like that. I was like wondering at one point, I was wondering, are we watching their movie and they're all at some point they're all going to stop like cut? And that was gonna be the twist.
Especially with the Predator vision, I had that exact same thought that like this was them making a movie together.
And at the end, when he's sitting in his little chair, why does he have a riding crop? Like, is he going to ride a horse when he's done? Like, like how many are there directors that just like walk around with riding crops on set?
Depends on what
It's kind of an
movie.
old-fashioned director's prop, I think.
Okay.
You know, back from when the Crypt Keeper was alive, maybe in the 1920s.
I do like how Jody's thinking this there.
Yeah. Jody went a different direction.
If you can send me recommendations, we'll talk later.
Oh Lord. All right.
Did they ever this is the thing, I've never watched the whole series. I've watched probably several dozen episodes over the years. Did they ever talk about the Crypt Keeper's origin, or is it just completely
They do.
left to mystery?
At least his birth and his parentage. There was an episode in season 2, or was
lower birth.
Last season, lower birth.
Yeah, lower birth. So you get a little baby Crypt Keeper.
Okay, I think I might have seen that. Like it was probably
they're in the
a
circus.
long time ago.
Yeah, I didn't remember that at all. So they kind of did it. I was kind of like, oh wait, did we get a Crypt Keeper origin? How did I not remember that?
So you've already covered that episode though, right?
Yeah.
Because you're doing everything in chronological order.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the child of a mummy and a 2-headed mutant.
Okay. I think I might have seen that episode. It's a very vague memory.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the Crypt Keeper of the teenage years episode.
Oh, I want to see him like just take him and put him at Bayside High.
Oh.
I want to see a wrestling match between the Crypt Keeper and AC Slater.
Saved by the
What is
Ghoul.
the lightest wrestling category? What's the lightest weight?
Oh, I think maybe, God, I think 105 pounds.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll even qualify for that. He's very airy.
Well, no, that's just a max. That's just a
Okay.
That's just a max you can weigh. So like, you can be like 40 pounds and good luck.
Okay.
But
That seems likely.
What's that called? The featherweight?
I think that one might actually be like I think rooster weight might be the
Rooster.
lightest.
Okay.
I was a super heavyweight, so I was on the other end of the spectrum on that one.
All right,
Which is like
Jody.
215 to whatever you want to weigh.
Jody, you got a comic comparison?
Yeah. So this came from Tales from the Crypt number 39. That's the December 1953 issue. Script by, again, the big guys, Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, the guys in charge of EC Comics. Art by Jack Davis, again, kind of like they're all-stars coming out for this one. It's the same basic story without the whole camera angle, because obviously 1953, nobody had personal cameras. I did enjoy the kids' names in this one. Instead of the ones we've got Chubby. Just don't even try. Just name the kid Chubby.
Hey, is that better or worse than naming a kid podcast?
Worse.
All right, so you got Chubby, Pete, Billy, and Percival, who I don't know what the Billy and Pete hang out with Percival. They call him Percy at least, but it actually says Percival. It was really kind of fun how they did part of this, because the scene that we see in the mortuary where the Undertaker's doing all the stuff preparing the body, they don't show it in the comic, but they have the kids peering in a window describing it. So I'm going to read you some of the dialogue from this because I just think it's really fun. They said, "What's he doing, Chubby? He's taking off the clothes. Now he's sharpening his scalpel. Golly, I don't feel so good. If it makes you sick, don't look, Percy. Oh, he's slicing old man Grove's skin at the base of his neck. What's that he's doing, Billy? He's sticking a needle with a tube in the cut he made into Mr. Grove's neck. He's turning on some kind of motor. He's pumping out the blood. That's what he's doing. Golly, we could charge admission to the rest of the gang to watch this." So it's just kind of fun because instead of showing all the gruesome stuff, they have all the kids describing all the gruesome stuff. So your imagination can take over and see what's happening in that mortuary. The boys see Grundy come in. All the boys see him and they see who he is. They hear the whole plot. But Percy actually leaves early because his dad's been sick. And that's when the boys realize that Percy's dad's the next victim. He's the richest man in town. And so they go try to stop it, but they're too late. Percy's dad's already died. And they don't tell Percy what happened. Like, they don't want Percy to know that his dad's been murdered. It's just a tragedy, not a horrific thing that happened. So they leave Percy out. And they spy again and see that the Undertaker's feeling bad. And the druggist says he'll send over a tonic to help him out. And so the kids just kind of hang around the pharmacy waiting for the guy at the drugstore to say, hey, I'll give you a nickel to run this over to the Undertaker. And so they do that. And then they take it and replace the medicine that the druggist is sending over with rat poison. And so when they get there, they drop it on the ground on purpose. And a cat comes and licks it up and he dies. And so the Undertaker thinks that he's been double crossed. He's like, oh, the druggist is trying to kill me to cut me out of this whole thing. So instead of the pharmacist thinking he's been double crossed, instead the Undertaker thinks he's been double crossed. And so they meet up in the cemetery and the Undertaker stabs the pharmacist to death. And then one of the boys sneezes. The Undertaker chases after him. He trips and hits his head on a tombstone and dies. And because it's Tales from the Crypt, here's your final scene twist. The grave that he dies on is Percy's father's grave. So they get revenge for him killing Percy's father. So it's the same kind of basic idea of this convoluted plot to make money by poisoning people and then charging a lot for funerals. And then one of the kids actually gets caught up in it. But I think it's kind of interesting. They changed who double crossed who with the twist at the end, that instead of in the show, the pharmacist realizes he's been screwed. Instead, they make the Undertaker think he's the one getting screwed in this situation. So it's a cool comic. Again, it's got that kind of kids, a little gang of kids, a gang of friends getting into trouble and doing something risky to help each other out. So I liked it. It's a good comic.
Nice.
Yeah, I looked at it. I didn't read the whole thing, but yeah, the artwork on this is great. I love that cover.
So good.
Yeah, the cover with the Undertaker chasing the three boys is amazing. I want someone to like draw our faces on those boys.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Get on Fiverr, see if I can get somebody to do that for us.
Yeah.
But only for $5.
I'm not paying $6. That's some bullshit.
No. All right, let's move on to our ratings. James, our guest, you can go first. 1 to 5, you can do half points. 5 being the highest.
On a scale of 1 to 5, I'd give the Undertaking Parlor episode 4 out of 5.
All
It's
right.
not the best episode ever, but it's one of the good ones, certainly.
All right, Jody.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 4 out of 5. I think it's a fantastic episode, a ton of fun. There are better episodes, but I really enjoyed this one.
Armando.
I'm gonna go 4.5. Because I really just, man, those coming of age old stories, they just really get to me. Like, I really enjoy those. And I think that kind of put a little bit over the top for me, but I can't go 5. But I think that's still, we talk about the Stand By Me, Goonies, Monster Squad comparisons. That just, and the fact that I watched the episode, I was like, holy shit, it's over already.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it went by so quick. Like, yeah, I gotta give it 4.5.
Yeah, I honestly don't know why I can't go all the way to 5 with this one, because it's got everything I love in it. But I just feel like it's not quite there,
Well, and I also think that the fact is, like I said at the very end, I'm like, oh, it's over already. So I almost wanted a little bit more at the end, a little something at the end, instead of the really just abrupt, like,
It
almost,
didn't feel fully realized like some of the other episodes.
Maybe if
Good
they could
point,
somehow
yeah.
done a 45-minute episode this time, just a little extra.
Yeah, but that's a quality problem.
Yeah, but I mean, well, maybe even 5 more minutes or 2 more minutes with just some
Sure.
kind of finality. Yeah, so yeah, 4.5. And granted, like I'm really nitpicking at that point.
Right. Yeah, I'll go with the 4.5 too. It's not the 5. It's not like, if I'm gonna make a list of top episodes, that's a 5 to me. So it's like right below that. It's like right below the best of the best.
But I do think this is one of those episodes that I'd probably show someone who
Mhm.
maybe not be a big horror fan, but wants to watch something kind of fun. Like, someone came over to my house and goes, let's put on a horror movie. And I'm like, all right, let's watch Bloodsucking Freaks. I'd probably like, this would be a good episode to put on. I think people would enjoy.
Is there any episode that all three of you have given a 5 to.
This season we have, right? Luckily, Jason tracks all this, so he should be able to bring it
Yeah,
up
hold
pretty
on.
quickly.
Hold on, give me 10 seconds.
Well, while
Quick-
Jason's looking at that, I went to go look up who did the special effects because that's one of the highlights of this one with all of the corpses and everything. It's a guy named Lenny Dalrymple. Dalrymple. I do not know how to say this name. Dalrymple.
Can you use it in a
Dalrymple.
sentence?
Dalrymple. Dalrymple. Anyway, he did effects for stuff like Armageddon, G.I. Joe, Iron Man, Volcano. So not anything horror gory. He did do several episodes of Tales from the Crypt, though, that will be coming. Oh, he did the Undertaker, the Reluctant Vampire, too.
Oh, cool. Nicholas Pike did the soundtrack for this, which I really liked. A lot of stuff on his resume, like he's been involved with the Wild Wild West by Will Smith, the music video, some Michael Jackson music videos, but he actually did all the music for Freddy's Nightmares, which you can find on Screenbox right now.
That's right.
Screenbox is free to watch Freddy Nightmares. You got to pay. Just FYI, which worth it.
Yeah, I mean, what's one more streaming service?
Exactly. Like at this point,
What's
I
the matter?
just have fucking DirecTV at this point. Like,
Yeah. I haven't updated my list of the ratings this season, but I can say last season, interesting enough, we all gave 5s to Fitting Punishment, which is actually a very similar episode that also takes place in a funeral home. It involves a teenage boy.
Oh yeah, that's the Jack Shoulder one, right?
Jack Shoulder, exactly.
Yeah, excellent.
I was gonna make that comparison too, but I forgot. And then the other one we've given all 5s to was For Crying Out Loud.
okay.
The
Okay,
rock
I'll
and
have
roll
to
one.
look those 2 episodes up.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
there's
pretty
a lot where like
something
two of
this
us-
season got it too. We'll have to double
I'm
check.
sure there's something
Definitely.
this season.
This season's been great.
Yeah, I just haven't written it down, but yeah.
Are you guys watching Creep Show on Shudder?
I haven't watched the newest season, but
Yeah.
there's been some pretty phenomenal episodes of that.
Actually, that's a good transition because we have an interview. Actually, by the time this comes out, the interview should be up on our website. But we interviewed John Harrison. He directed the Tales of the Crypt episode Ease'll Kill Ya, the last one that we did. And he directed a lot of the Creep Show episodes. So
Including the house with the head, which
house,
is
yeah.
really cool.
We talked,
Yeah, that's from season 1.
Yeah, that was
we,
a great one.
we talked about that one specifically. I picked one episode to rewatch and discuss. So we talked about that. He also directed Tales from the Dark Side. He's probably one of the most prolific horror anthology TV directors. If not the most prolific, if you look at his whole resume. He didn't do any Freddy's Nightmares, but he did a ton of Tales from the Dark Side. He did 2 Tales from the Crypt, and he did a ton of the Creep Show episodes.
James, are you all caught up on Creep Show?
Yeah, I think I've watched every episode, all 3 seasons.
What are your favorite ones?
What was the one about? It was like the end of the world, about like it was like an Evil Dead type episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
Post-apocalyptic.
good.
That was really
with
good
the Bob
on
Ross.
season
Yeah,
3.
that was my
It's-
favorite episode ever. I love
What's
that
it called?
episode.
I can't remember the name.
It's like that Bob Ross style one, the public access TV.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I-
the PBS type thing.
Well, no, that was a good one. I mean, the one later, it talks about people who are like executioners of these demons, and it has a
Huh.
very Evil Dead type aesthetic to it.
I'll have to look
I
at
don't
that
know
one.
if I've seen that one. I don't know if I've
It
seen
might
that
be
one.
a season 3 one. I
Yeah,
haven't
it is a
seen
season 3
yet.
one.
Okay, I haven't seen season 3 yet. I've seen 1 and 2. Public Television of the Dead is the one you're talking
Oh, yeah,
about.
but
which
there's
is
also
so
the other
fantastic.
one though. It's like supposed to be, like a post-apocalyptic,
Right.
Satanic, supernatural post-apocalyptic situation, and that looks a lot like Evil Dead. Like the demons that are in it are
Nice.
copied from Evil Dead.
Wow, I'm gonna check that out because
Yeah,
everything you
that's-
just said sounds like it's everything I love.
Yeah, I
this-
mean
this
that's
is
probably the
making me
best
wanna catch
episode of
up.
season 3. I mean, I could look it up, but Shudder follows me on Twitter.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they've retweeted some of my stuff too.
That's
That's
awesome. Shudder's one of those things when it first came out. I'm not saying it was bad, but it was kind of just chugging along. Then they just kind of just figured it out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they have so many good new releases on it every month. So plus, like, God, the back catalog on Shudder, just gem after gem after gem. And there's something for everybody whenever your mood is. Like, hey, Shudder, How would you to sponsor a podcast?
If we need another sponsor.
Right. Okay, we're going to move on to Song of the Day. And originally, when we were going to record this episode, Mondo wasn't going to be able to make it because he was celebrating his birthday weekend.
Woohoo.
So I did a whole Song of the Day in honor of Mondo. So we're just going to roll with that.
So I read what you wrote, and as you go, I'll start correcting the things you got wrong, but keep going.
Okay, well, a lot of this I cribbed from other websites, so we can blame them. So again, for Song of the Day, I wanted to honor Mondo and his birthday. So I looked up entrance songs for wrestler The Undertaker, which obviously goes with the episode, and Mondo's a big wrestling fan, so I figured that works together. Now throughout, I looked at the songs, the entrance songs that The Undertaker has used throughout his probably 20-30 year career, Mondo.
And he started, I think,
in the 80s.
Man, he is close to 40 years at this point. I think
insane.
If you put a gun to my head, I think 88 might have been when he started as Mean Mark Callis, or he might have been Texas Red in the in Mid-South Wrestling. It's been a long time though.
His first match was in 1990. That's Google, not me. Just knowing this.
That might have been his first match as The Undertaker, which is Survivor Series 1990.
It's his first one-on-one debut, it says.
All right, you guys keep talking. I'm gonna look this up. So I don't trust that.
Yeah, no, don't trust me. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about.
Regardless, but in his career, he's had many different entrance songs. I guess it never occurred to me that wrestlers could change their entrance songs. But I guess for someone with the career of The Undertaker, they've gone through kind of different phases. He switches it up. So throughout his career, he used Kid Rock's American Badass, Limp Bizkit's Rolling, but we're not going with one of those. In 2010, again, I'm getting this from another website, so Mondo, feel free to correct me. After retiring Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker suffered a rash of injuries that kept him out of action for a few months, culminating in a feud with his, quote, brother Kane, where he was buried alive. So I'm assuming that the Kane buried the Undertaker alive to kind of dry them off for a little bit. Yeah, go.
Let me just take over here. Okay. So I was right. He started in 87 as Texas Red. And as for World Class Championship Wrestling, which is a Texas-based promotion where the Von Erichs came from, the Freebirds came from. It was crazy because back then this regional promotion had a worldwide distribution, which is actually insane when you think about it for the late 80s. So his feud with Kane started at WrestleMania 14. Kane debuted in 1997's Bad Blood pay-per-view in the Hell in the Cell match where Shawn Michaels actually beat The Undertaker. And then they feuded and tag team throughout their careers. And in his later years, he was just kind of always injured. So he was wrestling once a year at WrestleMania. And he kind of mentioned how he thought it was actually worse for his body because he was like, yeah, it's one of those things where you don't, if you don't run at all and you run one marathon a year, your body's going to be like, man, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, he wrestled the Kane and buried alive match. No one remembers that. The WrestleMania matches, people have this fond memory of The Undertaker being undefeated at WrestleMania and having these great matches. He had some of the fucking worst matches of all times too. I was actually at Las Vegas, WrestleMania 9. He wrestled the Giant Gonzalez, which was this 7 foot, legit 7'6" guy who wore a bodysuit with muscles painted on it and somehow a crotch painted on it too. No wiener there. So he was basically didn't have a gender, who actually choked The Undertaker out with a chloroform rag. And they gave Undertaker the DQ win. But what's crazy is if they'd have given Giant Gonzalez the win, that would have ruined the streak, which is what he actually became famous for. So do you know what WrestleMania he used this? Did you already say the name of the song?
No, we haven't got there yet.
Okay, sorry. So
it's a long road to get to the name of the song.
Dude, like I'm a diehard wrestling fan, so I keep going, Jason. I'll let you pick it up from there.
Okay, so basically, they because of his injuries, they tried to do this whole plot where he's kind of gathering his strength and kind of rebuilding himself. So they decided to make his entrance song Johnny Cash's cover of "Ain't No Grave," which was released on the last kind of compilation CD after Johnny Cash passed away. And I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan. Not like big on country, but he's like the pinnacle for me, and it's one of my favorite artists.
Well, and those late CDs of his,
so good.
they're so good.
Rick Rubin.
I would 100% say like I'm not an early Johnny Cash. I wouldn't say fan, but like I like his older stuff later when he started getting that gruff voice and very introspective work he started doing was really great. So he used this song at WrestleMania 27, where he wrestled Triple H in a no holds barred match. It was a rematch from the year before. One of the best. So there's a spot in the match where Triple H, like everyone knows, the Undertaker's not losing at WrestleMania. It just doesn't happen. It was a streak, and Triple H hits him with his own tombstone. And I was like, oh, fuck. They're ending the streak right here. Like, it got me as a guy who's watched wrestling my whole life. And when I say, like, what I love about pro wrestling is when I can forget that I'm watching pro wrestling and just fall in love with the story they're telling. And those guys did a great job. It was a great show. Later on at WrestleMania 30, the Beast, Brock Lesnar. Can I do the Paul Heyman intro? Can I do the weird? I'm not going to do it. I'll say it in the episode. But like the way Paul Heyman introduces Brock Lesnar is the best thing ever. Just had to get that in there. And Brock Lesnar ended the streak at WrestleMania 30, which is one of those things where I remember watching that live with my wife, and he hits like the third F5, and I was like, "Fuck, they're gonna pin the Undertaker." But I didn't believe it in my heart when they pinned him, and I was just like, what the fuck? And that was a talk of like the sports world. Like ESPN had like a discussion about this on their on Sports Center the next day. So that was the end of the streak. And he will actually be inducted this year into the WWE Hall of Fame, which is the most bullshit Hall of Fame in sports. And I say that based on like, if you have a pulse and you wrestle for them at some point, you can just go in the Hall of Fame. It'd be like a AAA ball player who played like 3 games in the majors that they're like, we just need a body. Get Joe Bill in here and he's in the Hall of Fame.
So our song for the week is Ain't No Grave. This is actually written by a man named Claude Eli, a songwriter and preacher, and supposedly this is the story on Wikipedia, take it with a grain of salt. He wrote it in 1934 when he was age 12, was battling tuberculosis, and his family was gathered around praying for him to get better, and he just started talking. He just started burst out in song with this song called Ain't No Grave. I don't know if I buy that story, but I'm sure at the time it was a good story to sell some records.
Were you able to find the original anywhere, or did you look for it?
I did not look for it, but it's been covered by many different people. And
okay.
The Johnny Cash version was used in Django Unchained and also in the first episode of Westworld.
Oh, nice. Oh, was it maybe like a piano song they did? How they had all those like
I have to look it up, but they said they used the Johnny Cash versions. I think it was in the credits.
Okay, that's cool
for Westworld for that first episode.
Jason, stellar, phenomenal pick, man. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
I like it.
The original version is on YouTube. If you want to hunt it down, check it out.
I'll check it afterwards.
1934 version is like.
Yeah, well, because a lot of those even like those early blues songs were written by one person, but they got covered a million times by other artists who just but then they all put their own take on it. It's kind of like the telephone game, where by the end it's completely different than the original, but it still retains that spirit.
But you know what? If Johnny Cash is covering it, it's gonna be great. If there's one.
Yeah, I mean, what is it like? The Nine Inch Nails cover "Hurt"?
Hurt. Yes.
Trent Reznor, after he heard that, goes, "That's not my song anymore."
But he said it feels like someone stole his girlfriend.
Yeah,
one of favorite quotes.
Which Johnny Cash is better than Trent Reznor, so it's fine.
Well,
sure. Well, yes, I'm right.
All right, moving on. Jody, hit us with some trivia.
So did you hear me try to like give Mondo information about wrestling and just get like burned out real fast about how bad I was with my wrestling? I'm not going to bring up wrestling.
I was pretty nervous to talk about wrestling in front of Mondo.
No, man, like
I learned fast.
It's one of those things, man. Though, but like I'll tell you, Jason. Like when you picked that, warmed my heart, dude. Like super endearing. I mean that. I really mean that sincerely. Like that's pretty cool. I appreciate it.
Yeah, glad you liked it.
So my trivia is short and sweet this time. We talked about the Undertaker, who enjoyed some pizza as he was draining a body. The pizza box, if you look very closely, is from Zemeckis.
I thought for a minute, I thought you were still talking about the wrestler. And I just pictured the Undertaker eating a whole pizza at once while draining a body.
All right. No, the Undertaker in the show was draining a body and eating pizza. And once again, the pizza place was Zemeckis Pizza, obviously named after Robert Zemeckis, the producer for the series. But we also saw Zemeckis Pizza back in the episode 3 The Trap, The lead dude worked for Zemeckis Pizza and had it on his uniform. So keep an eye out. Anytime you see pizza in this show, it might be Zemeckis Pizza.
I just want to picture like his brother or an uncle or his father actually owned a pizza place called Zemeckis. And they're just
That was
get some
actually a
product
thing
placement.
outside of the Tales from the Crypt universe.
That'd be awesome. If we ever open a Tales from the Crypt theme park, we'll have to have Zemeckis Pizza.
Excellent.
All right. For our dad advice section, we thought we'd give some horror author recommendations. So James, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Do you want me to recommend a novel or?
Yeah, you can pick a couple novels.
Okay, pick a couple of novels. It's kind of an old one, but I was just talking about this with somebody. It's Stephen King's Pet Sematary.
Ooh.
It's probably worth revisiting. I read it in grade school, and it's probably worth reading again now.
Real quick question. I read it in grade school too.
Yeah.
Were you in grade school? Were you more grossed out by the sex scenes or by the gore?
I don't remember the sex scenes actually I do. I remember the scene where they're in the bathtub.
Yes,
100% remember that.
Yeah, and it's something about Girl Scouts, where she learned that.
yes.
Yeah, I'm amazed that I remember that because now that you mention it, I do remember that scene. It's still in my memory. But like the most disturbing part is the very end.
Yeah,
which
I'd say
in
so,
the
too.
movie, the original movie, and in the novel, it's truly frightening.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I think of all of Stephen King's books, especially during his coked out days, Pet Sematary is the most like gut-wrenching, scary one of all of them. I love lots of Stephen King, but Pet Sematary may be the scariest one. It's definitely the most depressing one.
So I saw the new Pet Sematary at a sneak preview, like a test screening, but they don't really tell you what movie it is until you get into the theater. And they just said like upcoming horror movie. And I knew Pet Sematary was like an upcoming horror movie. And they sat us down like, okay, guys, we're gonna show you the new Pet Sematary. I'm like, I don't want to see kids murdered. It's kind of a heavy movie to just drop on someone. And also,
It's super heavy.
Spoiler for the new one, but they, how they switch which kid gets hit by the car. Again, when you see a screening like this for a new movie, oftentimes you haven't seen any trailers yet. So when that happened, I like jumped out of my seat because they kind of give it away in the trailer a little bit. They kind of knew, but I had no idea that they were going to do it that way. So my jaw just dropped. And I even wrote in the comment card, "Do not give this away in the trailer," which of course they did. But
They did.
they're not gonna
100%.
listen to me.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as the original, but it was still a pretty good movie, I thought.
Yeah.
I haven't
all right.
seen it.
I saw it
Mondo.
in the theater. I saw it right before the
really?
pandemic started, I think.
Yeah.
If I can ask too, James, what authors are there any authors that obviously Stephen King that inspired you to start writing?
I was more inspired by horror movies, I think, than particular authors. Particularly like the horror movie anthologies or TV shows like Tales from the Crypt.
Cool. Which is your
especially
favorite,
because it's not an anthology series because it's only my stories, but it's a collection of short stories. And I was more inspired, like Tales from the Dark Side is a big influence on this series.
Nice.
Yes. All right, Mondo.
And
what's
then
your...
Night Gallery. Do you guys remember Night Gallery?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So those are actually two that I was thinking of specifically when I started writing this.
Nice. Love it.
Mondo, what's your book recommendation?
Real fast, Jody, you said you had a headache. Did you just open another hard seltzer? That glass looked pretty full when you just showed it in the screen.
I may have. Yes. Tennessee is a test market for hard Mountain Dew. I won't say too much about it, but it's pretty good. It's really dangerous, honestly.
I still
It's too
understand. No caffeine.
It's too good.
All right, real fast. There's 4 flavors. Did you try all 4?
I've got 3 so far. Haven't had the
Wait,
black cherry.
Okay. Next week we're gonna need a rating or an order of the 4.
I can make it happen.
What are the 4 flavors?
We'll talk about it next week.
Okay, we'll save that for next week.
We'll save it next week when Jody can give us a full review of Mountain Dew hard seltzer, hopefully coming to our town soon. Favorite horror novels, again, Pet Sematary was kind of like one of the first ones I ever read that really just blew me away. Because again, I was in 5th grade when I read it, and I'm like, what the fuck did I just read? And that
Yeah,
was
it was in our school library, which is kind of
no way.
surprising. Yeah. So I think I went to Catholic school too. So like the nuns
Wow.
never bothered to. No, that they didn't know it was in there.
The nuns are like, it's got a kitty cat in the cover. We'll just
Yeah. So I don't think they ever wrote it, but that's where I started reading H.P. Lovecraft too, as in our little library.
Lovecraft, for all the issues that guy is, we can talk for podcasts about like the issues that guy had, but like I was a big fan of Lovecraft growing up, definitely.
Yeah, the first story I read of him was The Outsider.
Okay, that's a great one,
and that made a big impression on me.
Shadow over Innsmouth is probably my favorite Lovecraft. The fish people and all that, I love it.
I was a big fan of Lovecraft growing up. Well, I'll do this twofold. One of my favorite horror authors of all time was Jack Ketchum, who passed away I think about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And he did if you want to read 2 books back to back, that'll just wreck your shit for a couple days. The Offspring, and then Off Season, and then The Offspring. Which when Off Season first came out, they told him like, you can't, like the original ones that came out, he had to make the ending happier because it was so bleak. And later on, the original came out. But I pretty much celebrate all that guy's work. Big fan of Jack Ketchum. Obviously, big fan of Stephen King growing up. Big Clive Barker fan growing up. Books of Blood. Obviously, I love the Books of Blood. Even like he did one called Mr. Be Gone, which I really enjoyed too. Lovecraft, obviously a big influence. Edward Lee is kind of like this guy you can tell is pretty sophisticated but wants to write like redneck trash, and it's kind of fun. I just can't think off the top of my head. There's all kinds of great horror authors out there, and like James here, a lot of great independent horror authors coming up that you can find a lot of stuff on Amazon if you just look through stuff and try to see different authors. Also a series I'm a big fan of is called the Repairman Jack series by F. Paul Wilson, who is kind of like horror / sci-fi / detective / mystery all rolled into one. And they do a series called the Adversary Series, which I read during the pandemic. And I was like very sad when that series ended because it's one of my favorites I've probably ever read. And I'll also say for anybody out there with kids, when I was growing up as a young person, one of my favorite horror novels growing up was Bunnicula.
Oh man,
I remember that. Yeah,
I wrote a book report about that in 2nd grade with illustrations.
Bunnicula, like Dracula, I guess Dracula, but it's a bunny and
vampire bunny.
Okay. Vampire bunny, just an endearing kind of little tale. I think is really cool if you have young kids that are getting into horror. It's not scary. It just kind of starts breaching some of those horror themes.
By the way, I looked it up while we were talking. That the episode I was talking about from Creep Show season 3, episode 4 is a meter reader. And
okay.
It's about the meter readers are these kind of demon hunters. They're like demon hunters,
cool.
And the demons in that episode of Creep Show are definitely taken from the Evil Dead series.
Excellent. Okay.
And while we're at 2, I didn't realize it till I looked it up on Goodreads, but I actually read James' first collection, and I gave it, I thought it was 4.5. I gave it 4 out of 5. I don't think you can give half stars on Goodreads, and my eyes aren't that great anymore. But I enjoyed it when I read it back in 2016. And he told me that the last story is about a spider and disturbed a lot of people. I'm like, I'm gonna have to read that again now because back then I was reading so much stuff that I just forgot a lot of it, which is now I'm like, I'm a busy guy.
Jody, why don't you give us your recommendations?
Okay, so there's the classics, the ones that I read when I was younger that I really loved, that I reread a lot. The Stand is one I've always been a huge fan of, Stephen King's Stand. Clive Barker's The Great and Secret Show, Robert McCammon's Boy's Life. So those are some of the ones I remember reading when I was younger and I've reread. But I'm gonna throw out some newer stuff that I've recently read within the last few years. Some newer authors, some of the upcoming guys. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones is fantastic, and also
that was great.
My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones is one of these up and comers who's so good. Frequently writes from a Native American perspective. He is Native American, so it's very cool. Paul Tremblay is another one I really like. A Head Full of Ghosts, Cabin at the End of the World, so good.
Wait, you read both of those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh shit, we got to talk about those. I love those
Yeah.
books.
Those are so good. Let's see, I pulled up my Goodreads so I could remember everything because there's so many good.
Do you have Grady Hendrix on there?
Grady Hendrix was coming up next. Yeah, that's who I was going to talk about next. My best friend's exorcism, Final Girl support group. He's so good.
I've only read my best friend's exorcism, but he writes so well from a female perspective.
Yes,
I didn't
teenage girl perspective.
Yeah, and I didn't I thought it was just one of those names that could be unisex. I thought it was a woman writer based on how that was written.
No, he's fantastic. Let me see. Alma Katsu wrote a book called The Hunger that's about like the Donner Party, but also kind of a Wendigo story mixed in with the Donner Party stuff. Very cool. One more Paul Tremblay. Survivor Song is about a pandemic that I read in the freaking middle of the pandemic.
Oh god.
But it's like it's called super rabies basically, and it basically turns you into a rage monster that kills everyone around you. So when in the middle of the pandemic, I thought, you know what? It's not as bad as that. This is bad, but I haven't felt the urge to murder anybody. So
you haven't.
Better.
But based on where Jody lives, if he ever gets bitten by a raccoon, we have to check him for super rabies.
Sure. Kind of a fun one. There's a guy named Edgar Cantero who wrote a book called Meddling Kids. That's basically like Scooby-Doo. Like if everyone went through trauma and then there was like Lovecraftian stuff afterwards. Man, there's so many good authors out there right now. My wife is reading somebody right now called Darcy Coates that just writes like creepy ghost stories. And my wife's a prolific reader. I think she's up to like 23 books so far in 2022, and it's March, which is insane. But
my goal is to read a book a week this year. I think I'm up to 4, so I'm way behind.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But yeah, there's so many good things out there right now. I want to end on something good here. Paul Tremblay's Grady Hendrix, We Sold Our Souls. That's a good one. It's a rock band kind of thing. They had a great hit at one point, and it involves the devil and all kinds of stuff. It's good stuff.
Do you know where he got that name from?
We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll. Yeah.
Black Sabbath compilation.
If I think of anything else in the next few minutes, I'm just going to interrupt Jason. Okay.
Now I've never been a very fast reader, so reading's always been come kind of slow to me. And it takes a lot for a book to really grab my attention, so I don't finish a lot of books. But I know,
real fast.
I just remembered somebody who liked the first one I wanted to mention, and then I forgot.
Ahead.
So go ahead. I'll get back to you.
All right. So my knowledge is as deep as a lot of people, but here are the ones that got me. So one of my all-time favorite movies is The Exorcist. So I decided to read the book, and I couldn't read it at night. I could only read it during the day, because at night it just got to me so much. This was back when I was like working in the office mostly, so I always had to take my lunch breaks in the office. So I just read on my lunch break every day. So that was kind of how I got through that book. So actually, I think I was reading a few times in my life. I've read 2 books at once, because I was reading another book at night and I was reading this during the day, because it was just too disturbing. Just the tone and the atmosphere was just, I couldn't sleep whenever I tried to read it, but I wanted to read it because it was so good. A Clive Barker book that we haven't talked about much was actually a little more kid friendly. It's called The Thief of Always.
Yes,
I never read that. Yeah, I know it, but I never read it.
It's really good. It's really creepy. It's like kind of a really dark fairy tale. If I could get Guillermo del Toro to direct a movie version of this, it'd be amazing, because it'd be right up his alley.
Yeah, Clive Barker surprisingly has some good children's literature. We listened to an audiobook of one of his books a while back. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but
didn't he do an illustrated children's book as well, I think?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, this one has a lot of illustrations that he did kind of put between the chapters to make it even more.
Yeah, he's
visual.
also an artist, a visual artist.
Yeah.
So that's one I've always really liked. There's an author I like called S.G. Brown. He's done kind of comedy horror books. He has one called Breathers, which is about kind of where there's a zombie apocalypse, kind of. but it's kind of under control, but like people kind of reanimate and they're like half human, so they can still communicate and still be kind of functioning, so they're kind of like second class citizens. And they go to support groups and stuff. It's really it's funny. It's really funny. So like his books. And then one of the last ones I read is called The Final Girls. Final, there's a couple different variations of the style. So it's Final Girls by Riley Sager.
My wife is a huge fan of that author. Just read all of their stuff recently.
And I think they're making this into a movie relatively soon. But again, it's kind of it's a drama with the final girl trope. And really, really fun movie, a really fun book.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump back in here because
please.
I remembered stuff I forgot. Nick Cutter is one who I've really enjoyed. He wrote The Troop.
Oh yeah,
The Troop, really gruesome Boy Scout book.
Dude, it goes to some places where I'm like,
it's really gruesome. And he also wrote one called The Deep. So my wife and I share an Amazon account. So she reads stuff from my Kindle that I bought all the time. And she accidentally read Nick Cutter's The Deep without asking me what it was first. Because she likes reading horror books. She doesn't like horror movies. But she likes horror
hold
books.
on a second. When you say accidentally, you can't really accidentally read a book because you can stop a chapter in. Like
she normally when she finishes a book, she says, okay, recommend something. And so I will give her someone else to read. And if she finds somebody she loves, she'll read a bunch of stuff of theirs. But she picked up The Deep by Nick Cutter, and she said, we're gonna have to have words about this because this book was too scary. It's set at the bottom of the ocean in like this oceanographic lab, and there's all this weird like Lovecraftian stuff, and it freaked her out way more than she expected it to.
Shout out to the movie Underwater.
Yes.
Good.
And one final recommendation, because I love the name of it and it sounds so ridiculous, but I really enjoyed it. A book by a man named Adam Caesar called Clown in a Cornfield. That is a slasher book about a clown in a cornfield, and there's a killer clown, and it's just a ton of fun. And he's got a sequel coming out sometime in the fall this year. So
I like it.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So to wrap around some dad advice, fucking when your kids are little, read to them.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And help them still. But what's kind of cool is like my daughter, and I was the same way, like through high school, you're gonna get forced to read so much shit. Your kids are gonna get forced to read so much shit they don't want to read. I was actually really lucky that I had an English teacher that let me read always had some really cool shit, like Achebe's Things Fall Apart, and we read Albert Camus' A Stranger and got really into Hamlet and stuff like that. But if they get bombarded with stuff they don't like tell them, oh, you should read more. They'll figure it out. If you read to them when they're kids, they'll figure it out when they get older. Like my daughter's kind of rediscovering her love of reading, and it's really cool to see.
Well, if especially once your kids get older, if you find something you love, recommend a book. Like, I was thinking the other day, my oldest is 15 now, and when I was 15, I was reading Stephen King. So I'm like, oh, maybe I want to try to recommend a few things that I really loved at his age. Firestarter was my first Stephen King. So read it.
What I was going to say was for guys our age, or maybe even a little younger, like college kind of ruined reading for me. Just being forced to read, all the stuff for school and everything. I just couldn't just pick up a book anymore. It's psychologically, I couldn't really do it. And then, my wife got me a Kindle, I think for my birthday or something like that. And something about just only be focused on that one page on that screen psychologically really helped me get back into reading. So that's,
I think I mentioned it when we had Alyssa on an episode, but my Kindle is one of my favorite pieces of tech because it does one thing. And it does it really well. It's just for reading. There's no notifications. Nothing pops up. Nothing makes you want to go check your Facebook. When you have a Kindle or another device like that, you can have hundreds of books in your pocket anytime you leave the house. And it doesn't do anything but that. And it does it fantastically.
Well, here's a tip for college. If you find in college you're having a lot of trouble reading, what I found really helped me is I had drug addict parents that wouldn't turn in their tax return, so I couldn't go to college. So I never had that problem.
James, do you have any other reading tips? I don't know how to transition from that.
You're the master of transitions, Jason. You got
I
this.
know.
Here, I'll throw in one more recommendation here.
Damn, Jody.
Sorry, not a recommendation for a book, but a recommendation to help you read more because I want to. Like
I thought you were going
I'm-
to say a
I'm-
recommendation for drugs, but
No. No, I'm with you, Mondo, that I wish I have read more this year, but I'm already behind on what my goals were. Audiobooks. Like if you like audiobooks, they're a great way to consume some of this
Yeah.
stuff. My dad is a huge audiobook user. He's always listening to audiobooks, and that's kind of his big thing. He doesn't read a whole lot, but psychologists say that if you're listening to an audiobook, you're basically getting the same experience as far as your brain's concerned. So, hey, why not listen to a book? You can do other stuff while you do it.
Or podcasts.
And nobody listens to podcasts.
as a wise person once said, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad.
That our second song recommendation.
I honestly don't remember what song that is, but I remember that line.
That's Sheryl Crow.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up another episode. James, thanks for coming on. That was a blast.
Thank you, James.
Okay, thank you for having me on. It was good to be here.
Where can people follow you?
They can go to jamesdermond.com. It's JamesDermond.com. And they can also find my author page for Amazon and my Goodreads page, and they could also just check out my my books on different platforms, also on Kobo and Barnes and Nobles and things like that.
Great. And when your next book comes out, hit us up and we'll have you back on.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I will reach out to you on Twitter. I'm going to retweet, or I'm going to tweet a thank you as soon as we're done, and you can retweet it if you want to.
Oh, definitely. And we'll also make sure in our episode notes we have links to all your stuff too, so people can find you pretty easy by clicking on our links.
Yeah, I have 46,000 followers on Twitter.
Damn.
Yeah, this is Clive Barker actually retweeted me one time.
Oh,
That was my brush with fame.
That's
So
pretty awesome.
I actually have a number of prominent people. Not he doesn't follow me, but other Shutter follows me and some important writers. And
Barbara Crampton liked one of my posts one time, so I felt like that was like my moment.
Man, so I never understood why people got excited over like a celebrity liking or retweeting their stuff until Stone Cold Steve Austin replied to a tweet of mine. And like that shit is sticky. I have a screenshot and favored it on my phone. Like
I didn't do that, but I was impressed. He's probably the second most popular horror writer other than Stephen King.
Oh yeah.
So I was, wow, he actually noticed I exist. What do you know?
Well, that's awesome too, because also if you follow him on Twitter, it seems like it's him, right? It doesn't seem like it's a publicist, and that's what's really awesome. That's
it
cool.
is him because he tweets really infrequently, and occasionally it's definitely him on there.
Definitely. Like you can tell when it's a publicist just liking shit, Yeah. I think Barbara Crampton is definitely a real person on Twitter too.
She 100% is.
Yeah. She is a real person.
Barbara Crampton is a national treasure that we must protect at all costs.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we thank everyone for listening. We'd appreciate it if you'll give us a rating and review on iTunes and a rating on Spotify. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Adios.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.